But the key phrase that you just said is, if we can get it passed. I mean, how does that help a family who is staring down premiums that are going to jump come January? I mean, open enrollment's going to end in January. What are they supposed to do?
I'm going to do everything I can. I've had a bill, August Pfluger in the House, who runs the Republican Study Committee there. He sponsors it also. So we're going to continue to work on it. But, look, this wasn't caused by Republicans. Obamacare was created, and it was a complete lie. Remember, Obama said you wouldn't lose your doc. You did. You wouldn't lose your plan. You did. You're going to save $2,500 a family. The opposite happened.
But what do you say to people who say Republicans have had 15 years to change that, and they haven't done so?
Well, I mean, the Democrats in the last 4 years, I mean, they're the ones who created these subsidies. Instead of fixing it, they created these extra subsidies to mask the cost. Why didn't they fix it?
What's up, everybody? Major Retired Richard Ojeda here, and it wasn't that long ago that Republicans shut down the federal government and went on a taxpayer-funded vacation and didn't look back for nearly 6 weeks. That's longer than any regular American gets, and with per diem food benefits that could feed a family of 4, hey, but only the best for Mike Johnson's crew, right? Can you even imagine knowing that you are screwing over the people who sent you to Washington, D.C., and yet you have the nerve to chill out on the company dime? This is what happens when you elect drifters and fake politicians who only want to enrich themselves, live the good life, and leave us the bill, while everyone affected by their spineless leadership are struggling to make ends meet. And while families in this country have suffered under higher prices and rising costs, these same Republicans gaslit Americans into believing Democrats were the problem for demanding basic protections for working class families. Democrats were protecting Americans from Republican greed and corruption, trying to keep the hungry fed and millions from losing their health insurance, while Republicans were fighting for tax cuts for billionaires. It's classic Republican amnesia, an abuse cycle of lies, distractions, and drowning everyone in the mess they've created. And what do you say to the people who are drowning? Rick Scott is standing there on shore holding a lifeline. Instead of throwing it, he's arguing about who pushed everyone in the water. Families don't need a debate. They need the lifeline, and they need it now. So what do you say? What do you say to everyone out here who knows the truth and knows Republicans have had 15 years to fix anything, have done absolutely nothing? What you get is silence, or just more spin, or Rick Scott right here, riding the same worn-out pony. Because the truth is this, Republicans didn't spend 15 years fixing the Affordable Care Act. They spent 15 years trying to kill it, weaken it, and sabotage it. And now here we are, living with the consequences, and it doesn't feel like winning at all.
So, Senator, just so people know, if these premiums go away, you're going to see some of these things. Medical inflation will outpace, as we roll through, all goods in 2000 to 2024. Medical care will go up 121%, and all goods and services will go up 86%. If subsidies expire, low income people making $22,000 or more will have $0, $66 a month for middle income. If those people make $35,000 and up, it'll be about $218 a month more. Older middle income adults, their rates will go up about 508%. So because of the COVID subsidies, people are used to paying a certain price. And we also know the coverage isn't good. It's been a major letdown. But in the short term, which means in the next 2 weeks, do you sense that there might be some compromise here?
And even Fox News is admitting it. Ending enhanced ACA subsidies would hit Americans on the exchanges first and drive prices up for everyone. And think about what Fox just laid out right there. Medical inflation has outpaced every other cost in this economy by a wide margin. Healthcare has gone up more than 120%, while everything else hasn't even come close. So how exactly is this supposed to help people get healthy? Isn't that the goal? Isn't that what they keep saying? Make America healthy again? Because stress doesn't make people healthier. Working 2 or 3 low-paying jobs just to survive doesn't make people healthier. Worrying about whether you can afford a doctor, a prescription, or an emergency room visit doesn't make people healthier. We're the richest country on earth, and millions of people still go bankrupt because of medical bills. And when healthcare costs explode faster than anything else, when benefits are threatened and families are already stretched to the breaking point, taking away the ACA lifeline doesn't make Americans healthier, better, greater, or anything else. It makes people sicker, poor, and more desperate.
But here's the false narrative. The Democrats are pretending as though this affects everybody in the country. It affects 7% of Americans, this extended subsidy. And of those, even if it was extended without any reforms at all, it would only reduce that small group of Americans' premiums by 5.7%. The Democrats have tried to pretend as though this is all about Americans.
No, I understand
We
that this
are,
is not
but-
for everybody, but it's 22 to 24 million Americans, and
It
there
is.
are
It
some
is, and-
Republicans whose districts are going to face some real trouble and some real issues with this. We've talked to some of them. I understand that Mike Lawler from New York was particularly upset yesterday, that he was kind of furious about it, said it's idiotic, it's political malpractice. That's what he told Axios on some of this. They said they could hear him yelling from outside the room yesterday where all of you were meeting.
And yet this is what Republican leadership has to say about it. Because let's not forget, in Donald Trump's first administration, one of the earliest things they did was roll back protections and empower debt collectors to come after people for medical bills. That's the system at work. Medical debt isn't a side effect of the system. It is the business model. And why is it that every time Mike Johnson is pressed to answer real questions, he sidesteps like the spineless little worm that he is? Why does he shrink the numbers, dodge the questions, and pretend that millions of people simply don't exist? Rick Scott does it, Mike Johnson does it, even Brian Kilmeade does it. Marjorie Taylor Greene does it too. It's the same disease every time. Republican amnesia mixed with cruelty, indifference, and a total disregard for people who are actually suffering until it affects them personally. People out here in America are drowning. Jobs are being lost. The economy is shaky. Unemployment is creeping up. Families are stressed out, desperate for a lifeline. And what are Republicans offering? Fairy tales about future checks and imaginary fixes. Anything except real help right now. Instead of coming to the rescue of their own constituents, these guys argue about semantics. So let's set the record straight. Mike, it's not 7% of Americans, it's 22 million people. You say 7% because it sounds smaller, kind of like Donald Trump's crowd sizes, because saying 22 million makes the cruelty obvious. Republicans love big numbers when it's tax cuts for billionaires, but when it's people losing health care, suddenly the math gets really, really small. Funny how that works. And if it really only affected 7%, you wouldn't have shut down the vote, would you? You are a red herring, Mike, a huge distraction and a pathetic excuse of a human being. But every once in a while, something rare happens, something you don't expect. Someone you never thought would suddenly have a moment of clarity. And yeah, we're talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene, the new woke version.
Health insurance is the coming crisis that we're trying to work on in the House right now, but they waited too late. Speaker Johnson kept the government shut down for 8 weeks, not the government, I'm sorry, the House of Representatives kept us out of session for 8 weeks during the government shutdown, but yet we could have been in Washington working day in and day out preparing for this upcoming crisis. In my rural district, I have 75,000 people that are on ACA tax credits. And here's the truth for the Republican Party. The large portion of those 75,000 people are Republican voters. And so this is a real issue, but instead of working hard to come up with a solution, they have waited to the last minute, and we're literally weeks away from those expiring.
She's openly admitting that ACA tax credits are a real issue for the Republican Party. She knows that tens of thousands of people in her district rely on them, and that a large portion of those people are Republican voters. That's her listening to her district. That's her actually speaking up for them. And for doing that, she's taken serious heat from the MAGA in the form of death threats. She's crossed Donald Trump. He's gone after her publicly. That alone should tell you how real this problem is, because she knows it, and other Republicans know it too. That's why you're seeing panic. That's why you're seeing lawmakers hedge, spin, and quietly eye the exits and not seek re-election. When members of the party start admitting the truth, it's usually a sign that the ground has already shifted under them. The cracks are showing, the structure is failing, and the MAGA movement, it's starting to look less like a juggernaut and more like a Trump Titanic sinking fast. And we can't let them forget who's responsible for this mess, because forgetting it is exactly what they're counting on. These legislators groveling before Donald Trump, bootlicking for the billionaire class, doing whatever it takes to keep campaign coffers full and power concentrated at the top. This is what happens when politicians answer to donors instead of voters, when pleasing billionaires like Elon Musk matters more than protecting working families, when ideology slides into extremism and governments are drugged farther and further to the right, no matter who gets crushed underneath. They want us distracted, exhausted, fighting over scraps, because an exhausted public is easier to control. So no, we don't forget. We don't let them rewrite history. We keep the receipts, we name the lies, and we remind them over and over again that this didn't happen by accident. They chose this, and accountability is coming, and that It's an absolute fact. Sappers clear the way, airborne all the way.